All right, returning now to our breaking news story, and Britain, France and Germany saying that they are launching a dispute mechanism against Iran for breaking its commitment under the 2015 nuclear deal. The US, of course, had pulled out of the deal, and now the Europeans saying they'll trigger the dispute mechanism, which means that the United Nations Security Council will now decide whether the JCPOA, the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, which was agreed between Tehran and several world powers, including Europeans and Americans, is still alive or dead. Let's bring in Dorsa Jabbari in Tehran for us. Dorsa, the nuclear deal, I mean, had been all but dead. I mean, there have been so many violations and also so many issues with this deal. What are we to make of this move by the Europeans to trigger this dispute mechanism?
Well, this is something that we were hoping would not happen. It's quite a serious measure taken by the Europeans that are left in this nuclear deal. Now, what this means is that there will now be a commission formed to investigate the disputes that is ongoing between the remaining signatories of this deal and Iran. What this means is that the Europeans feel the Iranians are not upholding their end of the bargain, and they've actually broken away from the promises that they made under this deal. The Iranians had said because the United States withdrew from the deal in May of 2018, the remaining signatories weren't upholding their end of the bargain. So Iran, under certain articles that was written into this agreement, started scaling back its commitment. They started reducing their commitments to the nuclear deal from May of last year. And every step they took, they said, we'll give the Europeans 60 days to respond to our concerns, and then we can go back to our initial agreement and we'll go back to those requirements, the limitations set under the nuclear deal. What this dispute mechanism does is it sets up a chain of events which begins with a joint investigative commission formed by the foreign ministers of the signatories of this deal to investigate the problems that they're having. Basically, the signatories of this deal are in dispute with each other. So this commission will be set up. They will have two 15-day periods to come up with a resolution. Now, if they can't, if there is no agreement reached between Iran and the remaining European signatories, because China and Russia are not part of this dispute resolution, then they go to the United Nations Security Council. The Security Council then has another 30-day period to investigate these issues. If the Security Council decides that there's no way to resolve these differences, they will decide, they will have a vote in the Security Council on the JCPOA and decide whether or not to snap back those Security Council sanctions on Iran that were lifted since the signing of this deal in 2015.
Remind us, Dorsa, of the commitments that Iran had made, and some of these commitments they've scaled back on since this deal was done.
Well, the main thing that Iran agreed to under this deal was to slow down its nuclear activities, its nuclear program, to limit certain parts of their nuclear program in the country, and also have more transparency with the international community and the International Atomic Energy Organization for inspectors to come and go without any advance notice, to open up all the nuclear facilities to inspections under the agreement, and also to limit certain reactors, the main one being the Fordow nuclear facility near Rome. This was where Iran is capable of enriching uranium at 20% levels. This facility, under the nuclear deal, became a research facility only. So they stopped enriching uranium at this facility. This is one of two facilities in Iran that has the capabilities to enrich uranium. Natanz near Isfahan is the other one. This facility, Fordow, became a research facility until November of last year. In May, the President Hassan Rouhani said, we're going to start reducing our commitments. They started with increasing in centrifuges, increasing the amount of heavy water they're allowed to keep in the country. So step by step, they reduced their commitments and went back to what they were initially doing in their nuclear program. The most significant step they took was in November, their fourth step, that was to restart the Fordow nuclear facility to enrich uranium. Now, They said they're not up to 20% at the moment. They're around 5% at enrichment levels. But this was the main concern of the international community. This facility is one of the main concerns because it has the capabilities of enriching up to 20%. But in November, Iran said, that's it. We're going back to what we were initially doing at this facility. It is no longer going to be a research facility, and they are going to restart enriching at Fordow, and they did. The president, Hassan Rouhani, is in charge of making decisions about Iran's nuclear program within a body called the Supreme National Security Council. This is a very important body that is made up of various different heads of governments. They've said that they're ready to go back to their commitments until when they see the European signatories go back to theirs.
Okay, Dorsa, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you very much for that from Tehran. And the EU's diplomatic chief has just spoken to reporters and says the goal of the dispute mechanism is not to impose new sanctions on Iran, but rather find solutions.